First of all, are we not gonna mention he kind of looked like Shia LaBeouf when like Shia LaBeouf didn't have a drug problem? Like, okay, come through, Moose. Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here ever, welcome for the first time. So today I'm super excited. This is actually like my first Second Life interview and honestly the first time being on camera with anyone from Second Life, period. But I'm here with Moose, who is the owner and creator of Moosu. So welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So I'm going to awkwardly do makeup in front of you and also just dive a little into just Second Life things, creating, talking about the relationship between creators and bloggers. I'm really eager to hear your point of view on all of that. Do you just want to start off by telling us a little about like how long you've been in Second Life and how you started creating?
Oh gosh, I might get myself in trouble if I tell you how long I've been in Second Life, but my current account has been there for 6 years. I've done it off and on for a long time. It actually was my inspiration to become like a 3D artist when I was younger, and I kind of have been creating off and on and only have gotten really serious about it within like the past year, but probably 5 years of just creating off and on now.
So did you study like 3D art or any of that before diving into it here?
It became a really big hobby for me. I was pretty much completely self-taught. By trade, I'm actually I do programming, and I went to school for programming. Right now, I don't do any of that, and I'm mostly just focused on my SL store currently.
So do you do that full time income wise? Because I know that's pretty common in SL that people actually make livings.
So I don't think it's a living yet, but I'm hoping that I can work really hard in the next few months and create a living out of it. I've got plans for, repackaging everything and really making my store appear as professional as my content can be. It all started as just like I would kind of just messed around, and then I was like, hey, people are buying this. Okay, let me put something else there. Oh, they're buying that too. I mean, if you look at my store, it's like it's all over the place. There's not really, I wouldn't say there's like a professional aspect to it yet, but I'd love to get to making a living with it.
Can you tell us a little about your store and what kind of content you sell?
So Musu is just kind of like a little invitation to my brain, I guess. It's kind of what I think is interesting, what I think is fun. I don't constrain myself to only one object. You've got shoe stores, clothing stores. I do it all. I've got weapons, vehicles, very simple objects and some more complicated objects. So it's kind of all over the place, but I like to keep it interesting.
I've noticed lately there seems to be a rise in those kind of weekend sales. I don't know, have they
Yeah.
all? I don't even know if they've always been there. I don't think I noticed until probably sometime this year.
There is a huge rise in it. I've probably gotten a weekend sale invitation every other day for a while now. And I think that's because people realize certain sales are like kind of dying off, like monthly Midnight Madness is going away or died and went away. I think there's like a huge opportunity to fill in that space. It's going to take like a lot of hard work, and a lot of people are trying to like rush into it. And there's a huge profit margin for weekend sales because you have no cap on how many people can come in. There's definitely room for some more weekend sales, I feel.
Yeah, we love the weekend sale.
But even now, there are some weekend sales. Like Happy Weekend was really easy to get into initially on the ground floor, but they've just recently said, hey, you creators, if you're not stepping it up, we're going to start, cutting back. So it's always hard to tell what's going to be successful. It really
Yeah.
is. Sometimes you gamble and it pays off, but sometimes you just are out 4,000 linden or 2,000 linden.
And I think that's some kind of insider knowledge because I don't think a lot of people know how it works. Like I had no idea what some of the costs were to actually participate in events.
That's actually a really good point to make. Is the cost is not just, and I'm sure people can infer this, but sometimes it's best to just tell it as it is. The cost of joining an event is not just the 2,000 linden. It's all the effort you had to put in to make that item, set up the vendors, all that. It's a lot more effort than just 2,000 linden. So when you have an event that just you took a risk on and it flops, it can be really heartbreaking and really damaging because now it didn't get seen, it didn't get advertised, and now it has to go into your main store, and you can't put it in another event unless it's like a resale or discount event because people are going to be like, you already put that in an event, you can't. So it's definitely sucks being a new creator, and I've been there and it sucked. It's hard. It's
What
really
I've
hard.
seen that I can't even wrap my mind around is the kind of the timeline for events seems insane. Like I don't have time to shop those events as fast as they're creating product for them. So what has that felt like in terms of participating in events? Like do you feel timelines are kind of intense because, consumer demand gets crazy for these type of events?
It definitely depends on what kind of store you are. If you are a store who focuses on one particular content, a lot of creators can become really, really fast with creating that specific content.
Mhm.
But there are also some stores where they have more than one person working on them, especially the larger stores. If they're at every
Oh
single
yeah.
event 4 to 5 times a month, chances are there are more than one creator behind the scene. You'll see me do a lot of weekend sales because they're really small items that I can just instantly create. My larger items, you'll only see me do like 1 to 2 events max a month. For me, it can be extremely stressful if I fall behind just that deadline. You will get removed, and if you fail to show up at an event more than once, they're gonna just completely remove you from the event. It's really it can be really stressful because if you work so hard to finally get into a big event
Hmm.
and then you mess up and you get removed, it can be like, well, now I'm back to square zero. Plus,
Oh
I have a
wow.
bad reputation. That's actually something when I do join an event. I try to talk to the owners at least a little bit. There's some events where the owners make you feel really welcome, and
Mhm.
that's really important for me because I don't want to put my effort into something where I'm just a number for them.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, conferences take care of you, and I feel like event owners should do the same, and they should be understanding and really work with you. But they are trying to turn a profit themselves. They have a lot of other things to do, like marketing. So I would say it's less like a conference and more like you're paying for a marketer. You're paying someone to promote everyone's stuff together, paying for them to bring in clients for them to shop at your booth.
Do weekend sales have similar like costs associated with participating?
Weekend sales are almost always going to be cheaper because your items that you're required to sell are always going to be really cheap.
Hmm.
So weekend sales are more about quantity than quality. So you pay, a lot less, but you sell a lot more at a lower price. I feel like I should have worn a more professional shirt than eat your greens.
No, it's awesome. It's very because I feel like so people usually when we talk about creators on my channel, people really have this like I don't know that they're unapproachable, that they're I don't know anything. So I think you being yourself is awesome.
I hear that a lot, and I think people are like scared to message me a lot of
Yeah,
times, and I'm just like, just message me. I will respond 90% of the time. I'm usually really nice. The only time I get mean is like if you spam me. If you
yeah.
spam me, I will be so annoyed with you. Like, the first time you message me, I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay, I'll get to that when I have an opportunity. Give me some time, and then if you message me every day after that, I'm just gonna be like,
Oh God, yeah.
especially I'm technically I guess I'm a mid-sized creator. I'm known in some loops and I have some popular items, but yeah, I definitely think creators are open to talking to. There are some who treat it completely as a business and are completely professional, but even then they still have to do CSR. If we do have a CSR listed on our profile, please talk to them first.
Right. More of the story, like read someone's profile to see how they want to be
Yeah.
contacted. But I
Yeah.
did a video ages ago. I mean, it was a clickbaity title, but it was like we all hate this one person in SL. And I honestly was talking about the type of customer that makes the customer creator relationship uncomfortable. So I think a lot of times when we hear creators complain about customers, it's about that specific type that like hounds you, doesn't understand any type of like realistic time frame, blames you for like lack of demo trying.
Yeah,
but
I've had people who message me and they're like, blah blah blah, this is bent wrong. And like I had messed up the alpha on an outfit and I
Mhm.
was like, oh, you're right. I'm genuinely sorry. Let me get that fixed right away. And like rather than be appreciative that I'm fixing it right away or, just alphaing your own damn body,
Yeah.
they were like, this is a failed product. And I was
Oh
like,
my
what?
gosh. Right.
Like they were just so rude. I'm just like, that's so strange.
Now, does
I
that
just
happen often or are people primarily pretty decent?
Okay, so I have a lot of people who like my stuff, but
Mm.
just do not talk to me. I've had one customer who is my top Casper Van customer who has bought like everything I have, but has never said a word to me.
Yeah.
And then I've got people who will buy one thing and curse me out over like
Yeah.
some pathetic little detail. And then I've got other people who will be like, "Oh, this is great. I'm so glad you made this." And I'm like, "You're welcome, check out my other stuff." But
Yeah.
it's the people who do contact you, unfortunately, are usually the ones trying to hassle you and get some more out of you, and it's pretty frustrating. And that's I think why a lot of big creators just completely ignore everyone because even some people approach you really nicely, and then slowly into the conversation, they try to hassle you and get more. And
Hmm.
it's like, you just wasted my time. I thought we were cool
Yeah.
and we're not. Just be chill. We genuinely want to help you.
I think we have a habit of kind of only contacting creators when there's a problem. So I can only imagine when you do your own CSR that that's all you ever hear is kind of the problems versus like people who just appreciate your product. What's that kind of like, I don't know, just like as an outlook or mental health situation when you kind of only hear from just like I don't want to say bad customers, but like the issues.
That's actually a really good point. That sucks. It really sucks because like we work really really hard, especially the smaller creators. And if a smaller creator releases something great and it gets a lot of sales, but they hear no comments, no feedback, like
Mm,
it's really disheartening because we don't know if we truly succeeded, if people really like it. They may have just bought it and then we get no comments on our Facebook post, no comments on like Flickr, and it's like, okay, so this is good, but like it's also, I don't know if I should keep down this path because no one's really giving me any feedback. And then you get negative feedback on it and you're like, well dang, so maybe it's not that great. So
yeah.
it definitely sucks to not get any feedback. So if you're watching this and you like something, you really should comment on the creator's post, tell them what you like about it, tell them what you don't like about it, but just give them some form of feedback that is constructive, because all we do here is negative things, and it's
Yeah.
troubleshooting and complaints, and we don't get much more than that.
It's funny because I've even noticed lately, I think people that like stuff are just really quiet, but I've even noticed on people's like work in progress posts or just anything like this really unsolicited, like non constructive feedback kind of overshadows things that people are saying
Yeah.
positively. Do you ever experience that kind of feedback from people, just even on like a Facebook post?
So I don't know what's up with my Facebook stuff. I don't get any comments on anything I post on Facebook. If I do an in-world group notice, I usually get a
Hmm.
lot of chat, or sometimes I'll get comments in my Flickr.
Hmm.
But I have seen what you're saying, and unfortunately, there's like people don't totally understand the creative process, and they'll give what they think is good feedback, but it's
Hmm.
like an overwhelmingly negative critique, with someone who doesn't understand the process. So it becomes like useless. So it's like
Yeah.
useless negativity. I think when people post work in progresses and they're not distinctly asking for critique, that you should avoid giving it, because especially newer creators, while they may need advice, if you're not also a 3D artist or a creator, I would avoid giving it unless they're asking for it. It can be extremely disheartening to a new creator who posts their first work in progress and someone just shits on it. That new creator needs that positivity to keep going, and they know they're not that great and they're learning, but that one negative thing can shut down a ton of new
Hmm.
creators.
So recently this bloggies thing came out where people are nominated for different, I don't know, categories. I'd never heard of it, but apparently there are a lot of event or awards that I didn't know about in SL. But the biggest critique that I've been seeing on Facebook lately is that they're all like kind of popularity contests, and even like Facebook and Flickr itself, if you're not like going around engaging with other people, like clicking, liking, commenting on everyone else, like no matter what your work looks like, you don't receive that same type of engagement. So I found it interesting when you mentioned like your Facebook has no engagement, but like clearly people love the product. So what's been your experience with that? Do you feel like do you feel like you have to do more to get attention on just other social platforms?
Yeah, I do think that's true. You do have to do more to get attention and just to get your stuff showing up. I mean, the Facebook algorithm, for me to show up on other people's
Hmm.
streams, homepages, I have to be commenting, liking, like really engaging, and that takes a lot of time. So you'll
Yeah.
see a lot of creators who just don't have the time to do that. It's actually really interesting that you mentioned the like bloggies, because that's actually gotten a lot of interesting feedback, because there's a lot of great bloggers who haven't gotten nominated, and then
Hmm.
there's some of my friends who were nominated, but they don't know by who or what. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, they could like,
sorry,
I feel like there could be more information. So I
yeah,
only knew about it this year because someone sent me a message telling me they would vote for me. And I was like, the hell is a bloggy? And like, I had no idea I was even nominated because they
yeah,
also
yeah.
sent it like
That's
to a bot. So they didn't send it to me to let me know.
you don't even know who's nominating you. So it's like really, it's a really weird competition
Yeah.
that, the creator of the competition could just be promoting all their friends. We don't know who's
Hmm.
nominating. We don't have any kind of feedback. That just kind of pushes more towards the popularity contest that is
Yeah.
SL, and that is kind of these clicks that you see form. Because once you become a popular creator, and you'll see this with a lot of stores, people just start sucking up to you, like
Oh,
on all
yeah.
the posts, all your Flickr stuff. They just are trying to climb using you, which is really weird to me, because you guys weren't there when I was making good stuff way back when.
Yeah.
Now that I am bigger, you're like trying to get in with me, and it's a weird thing.
Yeah. And it's funny because I wish I could. I'm always just looking at Facebook. So I'm that lurker who probably doesn't engage anywhere because I'm just watching everything. But someone made a post, a creator, and that was the first thing. Like they were trying to respond to a customer inquiry, but the customer just like immediately started, "Well, I'm not going to kiss your ass," like assuming, because I think customers see that they'll see people like sucking up to creators for whatever their reason is, and then assume that creators just love that and expect that from everyone. So I think it's a good perspective that you mentioned. Like it's weird.
Yeah, it definitely is weird. I definitely prefer people just to be real with me
Yeah.
than to be fake. The faker you are, like the more we can kind of see it. I know you're not screaming, like legitimately screaming about this product. So just be chill. At least for
Yeah.
me, there are some creators who love the hype. I just want constructive feedback. I'm always trying to get better.
So let's talk a little about blogging. So have you used bloggers for your store?
I have a lot to say about
Oh
bloggers.
my God. I don't even know where to start. So I don't know much about it. I think, I've never worked with creators for any type of content I do, primarily because I haven't loved the way it's set up. I've blogged in real life, so it's very opposite of what that experience is like in real life. Even with my YouTube channel, it's hard to try to convince me to go sign up for a Blogatex for a free item when I own like so many different businesses in SL, so I don't need free items. I could purchase whatever I want. It seems very complicated. So you tell me what that experience is all about.
So when I first started, everyone told me that I needed bloggers. So I went out, I got Blogatex, and I got bloggers, and I had some really good ones, and I had some like really bad ones. And what's really interesting, and this mostly applies to new creators, is that I think that bloggers can be really good to promote your objects, but don't rush into it, because what ended up happening to me is I didn't have a CSR back then. I don't
Mhm.
have someone to manage my bloggers. When you have say even 10 bloggers, but because you're a new store, you have to accept whoever applied, which doesn't tend to be the best of the best. You end up dealing with a lot of, oh, they didn't blog my item, oh, this picture really doesn't have a focus on my item, oh, they missed another deadline, oh, they're making like another excuse. And it's like,
Mhm.
wow, this is a lot of time that I could have been using in a better way. When you are looking for bloggers, I think it's best to do it a little later in your creative phase, because you can just use the event bloggers for right now and then move into getting real bloggers. And I'm real bloggers, but the more dedicated bloggers
Mhm.
who will always blog on time, will focus on your items, and who are more engaged with you and your store. There's definitely a lot of negative stigma around bloggers, but I think
Yeah.
that comes from people who want to blog and then realize how much work it is,
Yeah.
and they kind of fall out. And that comes from a lot of new creators who are producing content but hiring bloggers who are also new, and then they have falling outs, and then they're like, oh, I hate bloggers, because that's
Yeah.
kind of how I was. I also got contacted recently by two of my bloggers from way back when, who are like, man, I love your new content, I'd really love to blog for you again. And I was like, you know what, I am going to start looking for bloggers again. And it's really important for creators that if we put a lot of effort into something, the blogger also like kind of returns that same thing. Because if I post something on Blogatex with like no comments or whatever, like I don't care. But if I like post something on Blogatex and I make a big comment about it, then it's you should kind of read into that. This is something that I care a lot about, and I'd like you to do well with it. When I was new, they'd end up being late or not blog, so it was like, okay, well, you know what, this is too much hassle.
What kind of categorize or what would make a good blogger versus a bad blogger?
Good bloggers are the ones who are on time and who really, if they don't focus on your object is still very clear in the scene that they're using. And they are the ones who, if they need help or question how you want something done, they actually engage you and ask. I think the worst thing to do is just assume what the creator wants. If you're not 100% sure on the picture, at least in my case, if you're not 100% sure, then just send me a message and ask. I think just timeliness and quality, I think that's as simple as it gets. If you need to take time off, just message us. If you do it, like if you message us the day before saying the next 5 weeks you're not going to be around, you're probably not going to be a blogger for that store anymore.
So when it comes to, so I know nothing about Blogatex, and you were mentioning deadlines. I didn't realize that was something that was relevant. So when deadlines are created, are they just usually around like promoting whenever your releases?
Yeah, so deadlines typically you want to set them while your item's at the event or, right before an item drops for like Happy Weekend or something. If it's not, then what's the point of even giving the item to the blogger, really?
Yeah.
Because Blogger is just like a marketing tool. Now, to be fair to bloggers, there are some creators who do not give them enough time. I guess almost cruel when it's like, I release it in 2 days, you need to get your blogs done. It's like, you can't do that to them.
That's kind of the
Just kind of,
impression that I've gotten. So usually people ask me to promote something for them, like on a Friday, knowing I stream on Sunday, and I'm like, well, no. But
Yeah.
I think what is tough for me to quite understand is, or maybe just because a lot of bloggers don't use any type of editorial schedule. And I think, maybe if you have more time in SL, you don't necessarily need to, but a lot do. So they have like content planned out. So it seems like it would be tough for deadlines if you're not getting that type of leeway. All right, y'all. So live from the editing room? Live from editing right now. So the point I was really failing to make here is usually, in my experience, just working in publishing, usually the content creator, and when I'm referring to content creator, I mean, the blogger, the vlogger, possibly the magazine editor. Anyway, those people have some sort of content schedule or editorial calendar or, something like that, because they basically know their audience, know what'll sell to their audience, and they have their content planned out to make the most engaging and most interesting content for their audience. With that also comes the expertise on knowing what works, timing that works, topics that work. And usually when you work with a brand, you have this like marriage, this partnership where the two of you come together on a deadline that makes the most sense for the brand to profit and also for the content creator to create authentic content that, will really appeal to their audience and also push a product. I don't see that in SL. And it's very much dictated by the brands in SL. And I'm wondering if, content creators, and again, I'm saying content creators as in the bloggers and all of that, because in SL, people call content creators the brands. But if content creators in this case just don't have those type of schedules, or they don't have that level of expertise in knowing their audience, or that's just not an interesting part of the equation for these SL bloggers working with SL brands. It's just very interesting. But let's continue. So like usually how far in advance are products released in like Blogotex before they're actually, ready for sale?
So speaking for myself, when I don't have bloggers right now because I really want to rebrand, or not rebrand, but repackage my store before I start promoting myself heavily. But from before, I tried to give them at least a week ahead of time. And then, of course, I set, my minimum deadline or my minimum deadline within a week, which is what I would prefer because that's like when the event starts, to my, my maximum deadline being towards the end of the event, 2-3 weeks into the event. I personally try to be very lenient with my bloggers because I understand that they get swamped with all the things that they have to blog at once. Typically 1 to 3 weeks, so long as it gets blogged during the event, but it's always better to the front load the event because that's when people are really engaged and interested with the items.
Now, what I'm talking about next is usually what creators give me shit about when I mention. But we all know like blogging is a serious marketing tool, and it's never the relationship that Second Life creators have with bloggers is very bizarre to me because it's unpaid. So normally you would be compensated somehow, or even from like a percentage standpoint. But from your point of view, what's the drive for bloggers or the motivator or kind of the what's in it for them besides just like the art of it?
From what I understand from a lot of bloggers, it's a lot of just passion. Having some people treat their avatar kind of like a photography and kind of outlet for their artistic drive, and having the ability to acquire a bunch of new items for free on the platform that you do your art on or your photography on is kind of important for them. So I know some bloggers, their drive is, I can take one picture for 7 stores and that's considered like a blog for over 7 different stores. And it's the fat pack for all 7 of those items. So it's not, it is technically unpaid. But when you're getting fat packs for especially like larger stores, they have a lot of value behind them. But for me, from what I understand, it's mostly just passion and artistic outlet.
If you're paying for all those products initially. that could be useful. And then kind of what's the impact on a creator? But yeah, just walk me through like what the impact is when bloggers just choose to not blog the items they receive.
A lot of it's mostly mental, to be honest, because it's like just really disheartening to have all these bloggers who, take it, get it, look at it, and like don't do anything with it because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, it must have really sucked. But in most cases, it's like if you don't have really trustworthy bloggers, it's mostly just them not doing what they agreed to do. But in other aspects, it can be really disheartening because you're expecting this is maybe your only avenue of promoting your item. You're a new store, you don't have many good events, and so that ends up being you can't make your tier payment because your item didn't get
Mm.
promoted and you didn't get any sales. For new stores, it can be kind of frustrating to not have that happen.
And what does happen in the event that a blogger receives a product, but it doesn't fit their taste, it doesn't fit their platform, it's not something they think their audience will appreciate? Is it still expected that they meet a deadline, or could they communicate that with someone?
So with my stuff, I was always really lenient with that because I understand that, like I said, my store is kind of like scatterbrained.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just go all over the place with what I want to create. I would have preferred if you weren't going to blog something because it didn't fit your aesthetic, that
Mm-hmm.
you contacted me and let me know, because it's always better to say something
Yeah.
than to not. I would have liked you to be upfront, like, hey, this doesn't fit with my style. Is it okay if I don't blog this?
That's interesting too, because especially I think for my type of audience, if I were to blog, there's going to be a significant chance often that people whose stores that I love, like if I think about like beauty brands that I love, like I shop at, or It Girls, I shop at It Girls all the time on stream and talk about it. But they're bound to have a release that just doesn't fit me. And I've always been curious like how receptive creators are to that. Because it almost seems like the creator blogger relationship is really an employer employee for a lot of stores, where it's like very clearly should be a partnership. And I think, communication is necessary there, but I've never heard of anyone mention like, what do you do if the blogger just doesn't like, or it doesn't fit, not that they don't like it.
One of the most important things as like a creator when you are searching for bloggers or you get blogger apps in is to make sure that their style will fit with what you create. And if they stop being receptive to what you're doing, then it's time for a new blogger search. It does go both ways. I can't blame the bloggers entirely because it's also my fault for, hiring people who didn't fit with my aesthetic.
Yeah, because a lot of times too, it could not even be aesthetics. I'm trying to think, because like I can't imagine any store I shop at wanting every single release. Like even my
Yeah.
favorite stores, I just wonder how often that happens. Because it just seems like a normal part
It
of.
definitely is normal, but I think some stores like mine are a little crazier, which make it really
Yeah.
hard on bloggers. But if you have, you're typically within the same realm, in that case, the bloggers should be like, oh, it's one weird picture. I'm going to figure out how to do it and, do what they are supposed to. So it's definitely a two-way stream for sure. And as a creator, you definitely should look for bloggers who can fit with what you do so that
Yeah.
the issues we talked about just don't exist.
I can't imagine, especially if bloggers are doing it for their art, if they have to compromise their vision just to sell a product for someone.
Yeah, that's kind of unfair, really, and that's why with my stuff, if you tell me ahead of time, I'm usually really cool with it. And I think a lot of creators that I've talked to are probably about the same level of like relaxed as I am.
Now, alternatively, have you ever had or heard of bloggers having any type of like, or like what would a blogger consider a bad creator? Like I know there's like good and bad bloggers. Like have you ever heard feedback from anyone about, any type of creator that made things difficult and like what that would look like?
I haven't talked to too many bloggers, but I know that the number one thing for bloggers is not having enough time
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of creators who are on such a tight schedule that they finish their item right before the event opens. You have to realize how hard that'll be on the bloggers who are now expected to blog it really quickly
Mm-hmm.
because it's releasing tomorrow. I think it's a lot more fair to finish your things ahead of time, give it to
Yeah.
the blogger early.
But no, that's what's awesome. And that's kind of why I wanted to have someone else on the channel. Because, I talk about this stuff all the time and I'm just an outsider looking in. And it's all just so opinion based. Like, it's my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm sure some creators have vastly different
Mm-hmm.
experiences because, I had a slightly negative experience with bloggers. Some people are going to have great experiences, and some people are going to have way worse experience than I have with
Yeah.
bloggers. Especially now where it's becoming more and more competitive for bloggers and
Mm-hmm.
for creators. I'm sure the experiences of what I get because I've been here for a while and what other people receive are going to be really different, especially regarding body kits,
Oh
I've
goodness.
never had any trouble, but now if you apply for a kit, it can take months to get, and that can be devastating for new creators.
Oh, I know, because it's crazy. Like the consumer doesn't see that. The consumer just sees you rejecting whatever their body is. I forget what store it was, but they only got approved for Legacy like a month or two ago. And this is someone that a lot of people shop at, and it's someone that's like catered toward curvy girls. So everyone just made the assumption you're not supporting curvy bodies because you don't have this body for sale, but on the back end they're waiting for a kit. So I know we've talked about blog attacks a lot, but there are a lot of creators who just choose to not use that. Do you think that's been extremely helpful for you as a creator, or
I think blog text was very helpful, but the downside is that it's very expensive. You can have a
oh.
group for 250 lindens, and that can do everything really that Blogotex can, but it's a lot more self-management.
Mhm.
Blogotex, you pay this quite expensive premium price to have the amount of bloggers you need and to make comments and like have everything in one location. So I think for new creators, the 250 linden group is great, but as you grow, you get more bloggers. Blogotex is kind of a necessity. I'd personally love to see competition because as good as Blogotex is, I don't think that it would be priced the way it is if it had a competition.
For advice for new creators in terms of getting bloggers, how do you determine how many bloggers you should have?
If you have a blogger manager, it definitely opens you up to having more bloggers, but it's better to have one great blogger who has 5,000 followers than to have a bunch of little bloggers. It's kind of a balancing game about how much time you have to manage them, how
Mhm.
much you're going to get out of them, and whether or not they are. I don't have a third one.
Yeah.
But it's mostly, yeah, time management and how much you're going to get out of them. It's not worth it for you as a small creator to work with 20 bloggers who only have 500 followers.
A lot of people that I've spoken to from just the blogger side of things, because I think naturally my audience is also full of bloggers or even YouTubers. So a lot of YouTubers now are starting to hide their subscribe count and some of their analytics because although they produce amazing quality, and although I don't think people realize like how influential YouTube really is. Like if I were to say I'm standing at the store, everyone come here, we usually see creators numbers go up like crazy. But how impactful or how closely do you look at bloggers stats, their numbers, how many follows they get, how many likes they have?
I wouldn't say extremely picky, but I care quite a bit about that.
Mhm.
So for me, the quality of your photography and what you're doing is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because if you apply to me and you only have 500 followers, that's not great. But if I look at your pictures and it's like fantastic, I'm going to pick you up immediately because I know you're going to grow like crazy. Super important. It's also like just another balancing game, determining what I think your growth is versus what you already have. If you have 5,000 followers and mediocre pictures, okay, I can, use your followers. If you have 500 followers and great pictures, yes, I can also use your work.
Hmm.
Like everything, it's a balancing game between what your influence is and what your quality is. Because I'd love to show off the quality of my work, but at the same time, I'd also love to show my work to a lot of people.
And now, how do you get those statistics? Do you have to ask them directly? So, say you have a blogger who doesn't use Facebook, Flickr, Instagram, or they're like me who, gets 1,000 subscribers a week, but I'm not touching my other platforms. Like, how would you, especially if you couldn't see subs. So I'm thinking of a blog. So say it was WordPress, like say their page was actually getting crazy views. Would you ask for their statistics or kind of look at the other social networks and say maybe not?
So it's almost like a requirement
Mhm.
for Second Life bloggers to have Flickr. If you don't have Flickr and have easy access to how many followers you have, you're going to have a lot harder time because it's just so much extra effort when we do blogger searches to have to ask like you for your statistics. And I've
Mhm.
never personally had to ask, but I imagine if everyone was just using WordPress and no one had legitimate statistics,
Mhm.
then I would be like, okay, you don't have followers on Flickr. I'm just skipping you because it's not worth me my time to send you a message, wait for you to reply before I make my decisions. I think Flickr is like the main platform for bloggers to really grow right now. So it's very rare
Yeah.
to see someone without that number.
It's always interesting that Flickr is the place to go because you almost think of like how much influence does it have if the majority of Flickr users are also other bloggers, and
Yeah.
how connected they are actually with the people who the average consumer you know, it might just be the culture. I've never engaged in Flickr in that way where I've gone there to see, you know, what's for sale.
I think it's a really good platform. There's a lot of people who aren't bloggers who actually use it, but their pictures and their followers are a lot less prevalent because they're not actively promoting themselves. They're uploading it to Flickr to share with friends, but they'll also follow creators and bloggers to see new trends and new releases.
I think my point there is we in SL get very consumed with like one place. Like I understand that it would be very hard to understand the statistics from someone else, but I'm just using like myself as an example because I've never engaged with Flickr yet. You know, one of my friends owns a store and I mention a product to, you know, people that I'm sitting with, 100 people on a live stream, 100 people immediately go buy her product that same day. But you have so many creators missing these opportunities because, you know, they require you to kind of fit whatever their mold is, which, you know, if you're bringing on a blogger for their marketing savvy, it almost seems counterproductive.
Definitely a lot to think about with that. But with Second Life, unfortunately, you as a creator, you kind of have to go where the people are. And for Second Life, the people are on Flickr. So that's what we want to see and what we want to use.
What would be your recommendation for bloggers who aren't on Flickr? Would it just be to get a Flickr? Because like I'm also that person who has a WordPress because I build websites. But you know, I think we're moving in a direction where a lot of people have their own communities and they're building a lot of influence in their own community. So how can that continue to work with, you know, this mold that Second Life already has between bloggers and creators?
So obviously people who have that kind of backing typically aren't new bloggers and they have the ability to prove that they have that community. However, if you are a new blogger and you don't have like the proof and the backing in that community, it's going to be really challenging to get accepted. You know, when I go to YouTube and I can see your numbers, or you know, you like in the Google form when you're applying for my store, they're like, hey, I have a WordPress that gets over 3,000. Happy to send you the stats if you want. That goes a long way, just being upfront with that. You know, if you just linked your WordPress and I clicked it, I have no idea how much data you get or how many views you get. So it's really important to be upfront and willing to back up what you say.
Good advice. And I think, you know, I think I would even say the same to a blogger who's new, kind of lean into, you know, what exists already, and then as you kind of start to find your footing, just communicate whatever works for you. That's kind of all I have for you. Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you'd want to add or anything like that?
I have no clue. I talked a lot about a lot of things. I have a lot to consider with, like, you know, bloggers especially. They definitely do have it hard, but at the same time, you know, this is for creators, it's their living. For bloggers, it's a volunteer job. So it's, you know, we have to be a little bit harder on the volunteers than we'd like. I hope that my new content will be really exciting for people because I am going to be going full force with my store in the next month.
Sweet.
You know, 100% full-time Second Life. So we will see what kind of craziness will come out of here.
That's awesome. We're going to be like, we remember when you first started, and you're going to be like huge in another year.
Oh my God. If you scroll down to what I first did, my God, it's embarrassing.
That's how I feel about everything. If I even look at old pictures, I'm like, good God. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was eye-opening, and you know, it definitely was for me. There were a lot of things that I never thought of before that I'm really starting to consider. Leave your feedback, drop a comment. If you are a blogger or creator who's had similar or very different experiences, definitely share those. And as a consumer, you know, had you even realized this was kind of the way things worked, or, you know, what was interesting to you, for you to find out? Because I know just as a consumer myself, I was really surprised at like how a lot of things work. And I really just don't know how a lot of these things work. So that was exciting. If you like content like this, be sure to leave a thumbs up. I'm always looking for people in Second Life who are not camera shy to come on and talk about some of their experiences. I think I want to do this a lot more often. I'm definitely still looking for someone who blogs to come on and have a very similar conversation like this. And then maybe like linking back up with creators and bloggers together. But you know, I know it's difficult to be on camera for the first time with strangers. So I get why it can be a little nerve-wracking. But thank you so much, Moose, for that. Be sure to like this video and subscribe, por favor, if you haven't already. And I will see you guys soon. Bye. This is my signature. Why has this song been stuck in my head for the past month? I don't know. It's been a while. Ooh, I want to feel like a librarian today, so I'm wearing my new Shein glasses. These things were like $1, so they're flimsy. But they're cute. I actually tried to zoom in so you couldn't see them, but like they wanted to play. Little Mr. Shia LaBeouf. He was super cute. I think he said he had a girlfriend though, so you're like, don't be a back off. No shit, no shit. And then my camera's like, nope.
Just the other day, saw you looking my way.